I'm Mark Small, Civil Discourse Now for September 15th, 2022. There was a lot of stuff going on today, especially on Meridian Street. People picketed the governor's mansion. Conveniently enough, the streets were torn up around the Capitol building. That a demonstration wouldn't have been convenient downtown in Indianapolis. But there are a lot of things going on in this, so let me give you an image of what. Imagine this. Imagine that a corporation bought shares and went private. It's no longer a public corporation. But it had purchased the rights to half of this state's government. Okay. Elections come, that party loses across the board. Doesn't matter. They're written into the statute as being one of the two major political parties, and you can't take that party over. That's what we have in Indiana with the Republican Party. I try to explain it in different ways, and here's what happened. Early 2000s, the good old boys that were running the Democratic Party and Republican Party sat down and said, you know, these libertarians and some of these other parties are coming up. We need to push them out of the way, make sure we don't have to worry about a third party at all. Now, it doesn't matter what side was making what overtures. What happened was both parties at the time saw themselves as being reasonably, run by reasonable people. Let me put it that way. And nobody ever would go off the wall and do anything crazy or extreme. So they wrote into the statute that if you're one of the two major political parties and is defined as having a certain percentage of votes in the prior election for Secretary of State in the state of Indiana, it's a down ballot race that most people aren't going to look at. They're just going to vote party affiliation usually. That's the thought. Well, everything's fine. There's two major political parties. Nobody ever thought about one of those two parties being hacked. Now, 2005, 2006, a guy named James Bopp is a Terre Haute attorney. People who are familiar with the pro-choice movement should know him quite well. He was one of the attorneys in the Citizens United case. That was a wonderful case for our American system. It shut down any kind of oversight meaningfully over corporations. Now, in the meantime, 2005, 2006, he's working in the Republican Party. He was on the Republican National Committee around that time. The Republican Party in the state of Indiana had new articles of incorporation drawn up. And it was the Indiana State Republican Committee that really is the corporation. And the Indiana Republican Party is just a DBA doing business as. Well, so what? Well, I've never heard this kind of language before in a political party, not from anything like an advanced country, but the state committee is the supreme authority of the party. And while the rules of the party are published, you can get them online. I haven't been able to find the bylaws. And the bylaws have a lot of things to do with how you determine who's going to be on that state committee that consists of between 3 and 27 people and is the supreme authority of the party. Now, we're dealing right now with women's rights, and they've been taken away by a Supreme Court that has lost legitimacy, but also we're dealing with people in the Republican Party, in this iteration of the Republican Party, who said they don't need a majority in order to run things. Trump said, well, if everybody that was eligible to vote voted, the Republicans would never win another election. Kind of tells you about things. But also, one of the people was the person organized the Red Pill Convention a month or two ago here in Indianapolis, right-wing thing said, we can run the country, we can take it over with only 15 to 17% of the people. They don't care about you. They want this power. Now, I gotta hand it to, when you look at what Mr. Bopp did with the Indiana Republican Party and the committee and all that, Machiavelli might blush, but it's like, we shouldn't allow a private corporation that's closely held that can't be taken over by voters. There's no provision for it's not for profits. There are no shares. And there's no means by which, at least printed, how you get into that central committee. So we have to change those laws amongst many other things. So, one, when is the deadline for registering to vote? Wherever you are in Indiana, and double check this with the clerk's office in the county where you reside. As I understand, it's October 11th. That is from the office of the clerk in Marion County. That's where Indianapolis is. That's a democratically run office by people who know what they're doing, who want to make sure people can vote, but double check it. I'm a Republican. I'm running for office in Indiana's 86th legislative district. And I'm pro-choice, pro-environment, anti-gun. I'm pro-civil rights and pro-voting rights. I'm also pro-separation of church and state. Now, I also believe that we need to change our laws so that corporations cannot hide whom they're backing for political races. And sure as hell, a corporation can't take over a government and hide how people can challenge its power. That's wrong. It's repugnant to what this country stands for, as is everything that I've read that Mr. Bopp has said or spoken is repugnant. So make sure you register to vote. Make sure you vote. And peace, love, happiness, all that. Every election is important and the most important we've ever faced, because going here forward, we've got to make sure it's not our last. I'm Mark Small, Civil Discourse Now. Take care.